Can I just remind
It's
your European
distaste.
audience who we are? We liberated you, son of a bitches.
No.
Okay? We liberated you. Russia did too. Russia liberated the East. We liberated the West. We rebuilt your sorry asses. You wouldn't be here today if it weren't for us. We're not perfect. We never claimed to be perfect. We're Americans. But my God, we went across the ocean to save your sorry asses. And we buried 100,000 plus Americans doing so. And I also want to remind the Germans of a harsh reality, too. Familiarize yourselves with Article 53 of the United Nations Charter. Not too many people know what it is, but it's the article that speaks of enemy states. And it gives every nation in the world the right to pound your ass into the dirt if you seek to re-embrace aggressive policies that should have been erased from your DNA at the end of the Second World War. Germany today, in speaking about getting the largest army and preparing for war with Russia, these are aggressive policies. And I don't think the Russians have forgotten what Article 53 is. And hey, guys, J.D. Vance and company, they're looking at it too. You're the enemy of America. Literally, you are defined by the United Nations Charter as an enemy state. And when you seek to promulgate aggressive policies, don't be surprised when those who buried their fathers, uncles, sons in the soil of Europe to save your sorry asses suddenly decide maybe it's time to bury you instead. This is fundamental, guys. Europe better wake the hell up because America's waking up. We're sick and tired of sending money your way, of saving your asses, only to have you sit there and spit in our face. Look, there's ways to criticize America. We deserve to be criticized. We are not perfect. We have done a lot of things wrong. And I have no problem with people holding us to account. But when you owe your very existence to the blood of Americans, you better bite your tongue when you start to say certain things, or don't be surprised when we turn around and hold you to account. And that's what's happening today. You're being held to account by a generation of Americans who are tired of playing the game. We're not going to underwrite your security with a blank check anymore. And we're not going to stand by idly while you plot against us.
There's an interesting comparison though, because with the Russians, they often commented on this dishonesty too. That is, when the Europeans go to Moscow, they talk about their security, their aspiration, and they kind of show some understanding. Yeah, no, we can work together. And then when they come back to Brussels, the language has changed completely, and it's a little bit like with Trump, I guess. When they meet him, it's thank you, Daddy, for convincing us to spend more on the military. But then, of course, when they're back in Brussels, they don't hide the contempt for him. So it's very fake the way they approach it.
Disingenuous.
Yeah. But it's an interesting aspect of this, because I think you make a great point that this should have been predictable, that Trump would have, I guess, identified himself close with the Le Pens and the AfD and the Romania, Moldova, all the essentially opposition, which has been sidelined, given that he saw this is what happened to him. But there's a comment though within the national security strategy that the intention to cultivate resistance to this downward trajectory of Europe. How do you interpret this? Do you think there's going to be more efforts to actively challenge the authority of people like Merz and Macron and Starmer and the likes?
I think, yeah, it's over for Merz. Again, I just want to remind the German people who follow you that Merz is the leader of an enemy state. Okay, this is a reality. You don't get to rebuild your military, not with your history. So Merz is history. He's finished. And the efforts among the Germans to suppress the democratic, free will in Germany is not going unnoticed as well. AfD, whatever you think about AfD, an increasingly large number of Germans think that that's the direction they want to go. And we'll see what happens. I can't predict the future, but I would imagine that a Germany where, if you look at the demographic division of support, AFD is very popular in the former Eastern, sectors of Germany. Maybe Germany doesn't deserve to be a unified state. Maybe the future of Germany is to be a divided state. And that might be the direction the United States starts pushing. Again, Germany, beware, you're the enemy. We're not going to allow you to suppress democracy, suppress free speech, and exist as a unified whole that is seeking to, head back down the path of the Third Reich, it isn't going to be permitted. And if you want to do this, remember, we are looking to the Russians now, according to national security strategy, as partners in stability, not friends. We're not best friends. I mean, I personally believe that we could be and we should be, but Trump's not there yet. Trump is talking. They didn't talk about Russia as an adversary or an enemy. Russia was a partner of stability. And therefore, anything that seeks to undermine this strategic decision to have a stable relationship with Russia becomes the enemy. In Germany, you're now the enemy. You're the official enemy of the United States. Get used to it. France, the same thing. I mean, Macron actively conspiring against the United States right now. Starmer, the same thing. I mean, there was a rumor going out that they're talking about divesting themselves of American treasuries. Play the game. Really, I mean, there's the old fool around and then you will find out. We will crush you. We will destroy you. That will be the end of Europe. If you want to play this game, we will do it because there's no love lost here. We don't like you anymore. I mean, we always came to you. We point to go to France and tour Paris. We thought it was cool to go to Germany and drink beer. And both in Germany, we used to have American soldiers living there. They fell in love with German women. They, brought them home. We have, families of children that come from American-German, relationships. The same thing in England. We have a long, storied history with the British, but we also kicked the English out of America back in the day, and we don't believe in the king. We're not going to tolerate any nonsense from Europe. That's just the way it's going to be. So yeah, I think you're going to see a very active role of the United States going forward in promoting those political elements in Europe that align with our ideals and our values, and working actively against those who conspire against us. And so, yeah, if you're Starmer, if you're Macron, if you're Merz, be on notice. You're our enemy now because you made yourself our enemy.
I think back in February, when at the Munich Security Conference, then when J.D. Vance made this speech, I think many Europeans were caught a bit off guard and thought that it was just J.D. Vance was, blowing off some steam. I don't think they saw the deep foundations in this, in terms of how this rift is growing between the U.S. and Europe. But besides threatening to divest from the U.S., we had now the former EU foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, who argued that, why are we still pretending America's a friend? Trump is our enemy. This train has now left the station, it seems. How do you see, well, you mentioned before that NATO is done, but how do you see this like in the short and medium term? Well, not short, but medium term already, because this rhetoric is becoming quite, mutually aggressive. And also, I saw this news article headline in I forgot which one, a British newspaper, that, the Europeans are, they're walking a tightrope because they want to be friendly to Trump, but they still want to, they say help Ukraine, which means to prolong the war and undermine Trump's peace agreement by convincing Zelensky not to take it. But so in other words, they want to tell Daddy how great he is. At the same time, they're trying to sabotage what he's doing. I mean, how long can this go on before Trump responds? Do you think? Do you see some escalation coming this way?
Yeah, I see. This can spin out of control very fast, very fast. What I see happening is that Trump is going to use the tools of divide and conquer. There are certain European nations that can't live without the United States. Poland is not going to walk away from the United States. Germany has already made a strategic decision to walk away. So in the short term, I think you're going to see the transfer of American assets out of Germany into Poland or back to the United States. But I think you're going to see the United States divest itself of Germany. This is fundamental. It's the end of NATO. The United States is already, if you notice that Marco Rubio didn't attend the NATO ministerial, it's the kiss of death. The other thing that's happening is that we are beginning to pull out of some of the foundational, you know, infrastructure of NATO, logistical planning, communications. NATO can't have a large scale military exercise without the United States involvement. We're not going to be involved. We're going to start to withdraw a whole bunch of critical support to NATO while we still be in NATO. We're just going to tell the Europeans, you gotta do it. And Europe can't do it. Europe doesn't have logistical infrastructure that can unify Europe. They don't have a communications framework that can unify Europe. They were relying on the United States for this forever. Um, and so then as Europe starts to collapse, the expense of sustaining NATO without the United States becomes prohibitive. And nations are going to opt out, especially when the United States offers them bilateral security arrangements. And this is what's going to be the end of NATO when the United States moves away from collective security. And we already have. Scott Bessent made it clear that if Russia attacks NATO, we're not going to come screaming in with troops. We'll be willing to sell you some equipment. Maybe. That's it. Of course, that's all that's required under Article 5. People haven't read it very closely if they think that it automatically requires us to send troops in. But we're done with that. So we are getting to a situation where if a European nation behaves irresponsibly and provokes Russia and Russia attacks it, that there isn't going to be a collective response by NATO because NATO can't collectively respond without the United States. And we're opting out of that. We view Europe as an irresponsible entity right now. So I think you're going to see us making individual bilateral security deals with individual European states and opting out of security arrangements with others. And that's the end of collective defense, which that means the end of NATO. And this can happen as soon as this summer. So yeah, I mean, again, be careful what you ask for, Europe, because you may very well get it. And in the case of America walking away from you, it's already happened. It's done.